Call the Topsham Select Board meeting to order, March 16, 2023, from the Donald A. Russell Meeting Room. Would you all please rise for the pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic. Patty, would you call the roll?
David Douglas,
Here.
Marie Brilliant here, Ruth Lyons here, Matt Nixon,
Present.
Roland Tuss.
Here.
And our town manager, Derek Sprochanski, is also at the head table.
Thank you, Patty. Town managers report.
Okay, welcome everyone. As of last week, the solid waste facility implemented an electronic payment system as an alternative form of payment. So we are now accepting Visa and MasterCard payment. So I know it's taken a while, but I'd like to thank Mark Waltz, the assistant town manager, and Karen for implementing this. Next item, the town of Topsham is seeking qualified applicants for the position of Economic Development Director, Public Works Labor Driver, and Law Enforcement Officer. Applications and more information is available on the website as well. On March 21st at 6:30 p.m., MSAT 75, the school district will conduct at Williams Cone Elementary School. The forum presents an opportunity for Topsham residents to understand the fiscal year 2024 budget proposal for the school. Just to let everybody know, the school budget as presented to the select board on March 6, 2023 will increase Topsham property tax rate by at least 6.5%. So it might be an opportunity to go and understand what the increase in the school budget is and get more information. And lastly, I'm pleased to announce that we've hired a new police officer, Gary Rodriguez, to the Topsham team. Gary is from Brownsville, Texas, and just completed 6-year enlistment in the U.S. Army. We welcome Gary and his family when he was sworn in this past Monday. And currently right now, we are one short of being fully staffed at the PD, thanks to the administration that we currently have and with Chief Hagan and Lieutenant Collins. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? Nothing. Board committee reports and update. An update on the boat ramp study. Pam Ledoux, Parks and Rec Director.
Good evening. Promoted us. Excuse us for just a second. This project came to the town of Topsham. Good, that's what I want to be. We don't even, okay. Forgive me, sorry, my first time doing the technology, I'll let you go from here. This project came to the town probably 2.5, 3 years ago when we started working on it. At that time, we began to assess what was available for water access on the lower Androscoggin. We received a grant through the state of Maine, and Travis Pryor, formerly with Baker Engineering and now with GEI, received the grant opportunity. For those of you who don't know Travis, he's worked with us on many projects, formerly with Wright Pierce. Patty and we know each other well. And Travis is quite familiar with our project. So we began to address and take a look at everything, and back in early January, began to redo things again now that Julie was back in the office at planning. And Travis came in and worked with us. We talked with the fire department, chatted with the police department about possibilities. And Travis is here to give you a report on where we're at currently. And I'll step out of the way so you guys can see that way as Travis, and just sit here and answer questions if you need me. Travis?
Great. Thank you, Pam. It's been close to 20 years or so being to work for the town of Topsham. Appreciate the opportunity to continue to do that.
Hi, Travis.
Yes.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Yes, sir. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. We started this project, I think in the fall of 2021, after the grant application was awarded, and started working with Rob Melanson at the time. We since had met with the sewer department at the pump station, had a few meetings on site with the Maine Coastal Program, who's the funding agent for the state, and met with Julie now, currently in Rob's former position, and Pam to talk about preliminary design. We worked through the preliminary design of the boat launch based on some criteria from the town, which is primarily focused on providing recreational hand carry boat access if feasible to the Androscoggin River. and providing or accommodating for emergency services, motorized launch of their boat at the facility. The project area is represented by the town's Forsyth Road recreation facilities on the Androscoggin River side. The first stretch of this gray area here, which would be a new, a little bit widened road for access to the boat launch by the public and the recreational users, follows the existing gravel road that leads out to the recreational ball fields at the site. And we then cross over onto the Topsham Sewer District's property where their pump station is located. This pump station has a security fence going around it, but otherwise is open to the neighborhood next door. And it does have a force main that crosses underneath the Androscoggin River that we have to pay attention to in terms of locating the boat launch, and that heads over to Brunswick. The property is also surrounded to the east, or slightly to the west, I'm sorry, by a residential neighborhood, with a church located in the middle, and then the Topsham Public Library is just out of view. This is the Pinewood Drive neighborhood off of Forsyth Road. We looked at grading, we looked at as much depth of water as we could get for the launch, and I'll talk about that a little bit in greater detail. Looked at minimizing environmental impacts to the area. We also talked about kind of site security issues and means of access, and we are proposing a gate at the entrance to the sewer department's property, which should be accessible for emergency services to come through Pinewood as needed for emergency launches, but otherwise the public would come from Forsyth Road or through the ball fields. We're providing about 5 parking spaces for immediate recreational use. There's capacity to add more parking for folks that would be a long trek, but they can park back at Forsyth Road parking as well. We have a turnaround. We do have one ADA capable handicap space for parking the boat and trailer. Even though the ramp would be for non-motorized hand carry recreational use, some of those folks still might bring a trailer for some of their boats down there. And then one ADA regular personal vehicle parking spot close to the launch. And then the launch goes down, we get it down to about mean low or low water. In an ideal world for all tides access, you want at least a depth of 3 feet below low water for launching boats. But as you see in a minute, it's pretty dead flat with silt. And the seabed until you get out to the open channel, the Androscoggin River. Sorry for this screen here. If I can do that.
This one.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Cow Island is just off out of the screen here, and then there is a silt barrier, kind of a burnt island that's built up in between. We did walk the entire site of the town's property in between Cow Island and the rec fields. It's pretty well silted in. It's a similar kind of elevation to as you get out towards deeper water here, it'd just be that much more mud flats, if you will, low tide to get through, to get out to open water in Androscoggin. Next. A little bit of a closer view, and then I'll go into profile of the boat launch. Yeah, we'll be providing a gate here. There's an existing culvert and drainage swale that runs under the access drive of the pump station. A drainage swale that empties out on the property of the river, so we are avoiding that. We're coming off somewhat perpendicular to the access drive for our crossing. There's the turnaround if you were a boat with either a personal vehicle or a boat with a trailer, you pull in there and back down the ramp. The upper section of the ramp is paved, and then the bottom section be a precast concrete plank. And then we're envisioning having some boarding floats that follow down the ramp and then do a turn so that the boat can approach the ramp or come off the side and load gear and things like that, and be out of the way of the current coming across the ramp. This represents a profile of the property. We try and balance cut fill And especially try and not create too much of a burn, I guess, if you would, or jetty out into the intertidal area. So we will be cutting the grade down a decent amount at the top of the embankment, matching existing grade for about the middle of the ramp, and at the intertidal zone, and then getting down again to about mean lower low water, and then we do what we call a scour protection pad, some large rock beyond the bottom of the ramp for fellow wash or tidal action, so it doesn't take up the bottom of the ramp and road depth. We are through the Maine Climate Council's climate action plan, and what we think is just good planning as well too, considering potential impacts from climate change and in particular this site sea level rise. So we do try and run the precast portion of the ramp up to a couple feet above the mean higher high water mark, or the highest annual tide level. And in this case, we also have what's called a precast concrete abutment. That's what holds those boarding floats at the top of the ramp. So that represents a couple feet or so above that high tide level, where the interchange is between a paved ramp and a precast ramp. And that is the last image that I have. We're looking for feedback in general from council. We're also prepared, this desire to present plans here to the public for general input as well. If that's something that folks would like to do, and then we're going to try and wrap up the project for the state by June of this year.
So is there no possibility for a public boat ramp with motor boats due to the depth?
There is a partial tide possibility, just not a full tide possibility. This plan shows it a little bit, but this elevation here is the mean low water, 3 dots and the dash. And you can see it kind of on the plan here as well, at least for a little bit. Of the profile, I'm sorry, the grade is dead flat beyond that for about 100 or so 50 feet until you start getting out into deeper water in the Androscoggin River. We did talk about that internally and maybe the possibility to dredge it some to establish that depth. That would be a long way to dredge and be likely to silt back in pretty quick. So this location would be challenging. Yeah. I also was involved with the Lower Village Water Access Study and right about 10 years ago or so. We did look at a variety of other areas off Green Street and behind the Red Mill, although that would have been a challenging slope to get down.
Yeah.
What's the time frame of the partial tide that somebody be able to launch a boat?
So it's a 6-hour duration between tide cycles. You probably lose a couple hours or so either side of the
Couple hours.
there. Mid tide would be safe estimate, but you know, if it's like Brunswick's boat or something like that, like a FEMA boat or emergency access boat that way, then tide markets for their services wouldn't matter as much. For a low profile or draft boat that's about 18 inches or so, and draft and get out within an hour or so either side of the tide. And tide does vary. You know, there's some drainer tides, so to speak, where there's some astronomically lower tides. So that could vary a little bit, but not as much this far up in the river.
Parking, you said 5 spaces and then they can park at the recreation. What about the traffic going through that neighborhood as it becomes more and more popular, which I expect it will?
Sure.
There's a gate.
I heard you say that.
So the initial suggestion that we got for feedback to start with was that it'd be desirable to have traffic come through the town's recreational fields, and that the only traffic that would come through the Pinewood neighborhood would be hopefully never, but maybe periodic, rare need for emergency services. But it's a possibility if you wanted to, you would have public access to that neighborhood.
Sure. And what about, do you have any paper sketches? Do you have that paper to hand out? Do you have that?
Was it in your hand?
You do have a
I can make.
Not just that.
Yeah.
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 Thank you.
I have an electronic that I can share with you.
Thank you.
Topics that we did discuss as well. The fire chief obviously is geared in and given us his information for what he needs to get emergency access as quickly and as fast as possible to get out onto the water. Chief Hagan and I have talked extensively about how do we handle parking, how do we handle gate, how do we handle security, those type of things, which still are yet to be addressed as far as cameras or something like such as that. Sewer district years ago was more than welcome to have us come to that area. It was the neighborhood that expressed the biggest concerns. I think, Ruth, you were a clerk back then and heard it. So that's why I kind of said, go my way. But with the understanding, I think the neighborhood has changed quite a bit since then. But with some folks that are voters and have an interest, but I think we would still explore how to deal with that and how to have access and when.
Reportedly was above in college, I believe, and a rowing club.
Yeah, the Brunswick Rowing Club, I think, was back about years ago. Other topics that we would consider is an area next to the sewer district where we could have, how do you call them?
Kayak racks, so
That folks
Possibly,
could
yeah.
rent possibly to put their kayaks or their canoes there, so that they wouldn't have to drive all the way down all the time. Those are things we still yet to explore when we put the final grant.
yeah, or, you know, like a ball toilet type restroom, like you have at Tide Park, or it could be something more permanent as a building.
Why the going over and down? Why not just go straight down to the river?
Versus at an angle a little bit.
So you come down and
If you were to go in that channel, I knew a person who used to farm their cow island. It's a foot high in the middle of summer. You
Talking
can
about
see,
coming straight down.
yeah, she's talking about coming straight down there, yeah.
oh, it's just more shallow.
It is, there's a lot more wetlands in this area to cross as well too. And yeah, I did walk the entire shoreline when I was out there and we'll get it off the map.
It gets steeper and steeper as you go.
Yeah, it's just that much longer of a period to cross the mud at low tide.
So I think, sharing Dave's comment, I mean, when we first proposed this, the intent was to not exclude motorized access from the site. At some point, I don't think that's gotten lost, based on what you said tonight, but I think the way it was billed originally in the agenda had me a little concerned that we're just focusing purely on kayaks. But if there's partial tide access for other types of recreation, namely motorized boat, then that, I mean, that's what half the boat ramps in the state are, they're tide restricted. I mean, very infrequently find something that's all tide access, and if it is, it's gonna cost a ton of money, and it's usually huge and used by commercial fishing. This would not be the case here.
Yeah, we have not finalized costs, but I have a rough idea of what it is. And that's a good point. I didn't describe, the ramp is 20 feet wide. About 6 feet of that would be taken up by the boarding floats, but that width is enough to drive a boat, trailer up and down. It could be a trailer again for kayaks or canoes, depending, but that's more of a policy decision. You guys would certainly help discuss and prioritize.
And certainly I would think at that point, we'd want to have conversations with the neighborhood. I mean, there are two different ways to go where the expenses can be put at building it or access to it. So certainly that's something. We were in mind of what history had given us about going through the neighborhood as we began to explore this and go this way.
So I wouldn't even suggest going to the neighborhood at this point. I mean, we have a pretty decent layout here. My biggest concern would just be parking for a trailer. I mean, obviously there's parking up in the lot at the top of the trailer, that is the hike. So I mean, clearly this is still in development phase, which is good, but as we move forward, if we move forward, I think maybe expanding upon that parking that you noted, Travis. Like
We have one boat trailer parking here, which would be your ADA one, I think for the emergency service, there's one there. We just showed 5 spots here just as a starter, but you do have the, you know, the sewer district property, plus the Legion property way back in this area. I mean, you have some lot coverage zoning issues you need to accommodate within the shoreline zone, but you do, yes, you could add a lot of parking along this stretch of the road, for example. Some short heading into the site.
Travis, is the intent somebody coming down with a trailer? You just envision how do I pull up and back in?
So you
Is that what that offset is?
That's this hammerhead here?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. That's about a 50-foot long turnaround.
I know you, I just want to know, how active is the boat landing on 196 that we know?
Up north, on the northern part,
Mhm.
very.
That's what I-
We don't control it.
No.
I was talking at the Lisbon town line.
Mhm.
She is. We don't control it. It's controlled by, the former Holt plant, the
Right.
offices there. But as soon as fish start running, we get phone calls. When's it opening? How soon before it'll be available? That type of thing.
It's also restricted, you can't go past the dams on either side of it.
Right, you can't get down.
With this, you can get anywhere.
Right.
You can go to the ocean.
Brunswick on the lower side.
You can go to England in your
You
country.
can go to England in your kayak.
We did have somebody traveling to work from Lewiston once, he said right here, so you can't get around the dams, it's not easy.
I will say my support for this project ends if there is not substantial improvement for motorboat access. I have zero interest in what's proposed here. If we can't make this, and that was the only discussion I believe we had leading into this, so to see this tonight is very surprising. And seems like a lot of lost time. So if we can't improve this to be motorboat access, I have no interest in seeing or hearing anymore, in my opinion. So you wanted feedback, I fed it back.
And I appreciate hearing that, Dave. I didn't take this project on in the beginning, didn't
It
hear
doesn't
that.
matter
I know,
how it
but
got
didn't
taken
hear
on.
that message.
It was sent that it needs to be motorboat, that was been the only conversation is motorboat access. So this here, however it happened, it needs to be figured out, but this is not what's been talked about, so. I don't. Unless something comes back with a lot more and a lot better and access to it, and if it can't happen, I get it. If we just don't have the depth to make it useful. And maybe, and you're hoping a couple hours we'll have accessible time. Just say that, if it just doesn't work, say that, but this isn't anywhere near what was envisioned.
So I guess for knowledge purpose, you'd support coming down the pathway from the Forsyth.
Yeah, I'm
And
fine.
expanding that road and putting the money into developing that road and access that way if we could make it happen.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
ultimately, I don't,
That's good to know, because I think we were trying to be tight on the penny in some ways and it's not
well, we
necessarily.
can't be tight to the point that we're not achieving what we set out to do.
When you say make it happen as well, you mean all tides access?
No, I
As it
understand,
is
but
designed now, at least with the practicalities of the site, I think it is more of a policy decision, we're adding some more boat trailer parking nearby, which we could accommodate, certainly. The ramp is designed to accommodate motorized.
I would like a
Access.
more finite number of how much time that ramp is available to motorboats. A couple hours versus 60 minutes is different to me. If it's not accessible enough, and I get it may not be all 6 hours. But what are we talking? Because this, to me, does not say motorboat accessible.
I would say on average, it's 4 hours around high tide, or 2 hours around low tide that it would not be accessible.
Okay.
But I can give you a more finite number on that, again, knowing that the tide cycles vary a little bit.
Yeah.
Would there be a limitation of the size of the boat, motorboat?
I don't care how big it is, if it can fit in there. But I mean, if it's, doesn't have enough water, it doesn't have enough water.
I think for experience, I go out there a lot, like I'm on that part of the Andrew quite a bit, and aside from the questionable legality of those float homes in the Andrew, the biggest thing that really goes in there is like a 16-20 footer with a 15-20 horse outboard. I've gone in there with a larger boat and it was stupid. But I mean, the river's full of tires, even in the channel,
Right.
it's disgusting. And there is a lot of stuff there, but it's still worth, I think. I mean, we talk about draft availability of, tide access, it depends on the size of your boat, right? And for the most part, the boats I've seen down there have been, and this is all anecdotal, obviously, but they would have functioned pretty well, I think, even in, you said 18 inches, right? yeah, probably even 12. I mean, that's all you really need, just to back your boat out of there to get to the channel. And the motor doesn't have to be all the way down.
And you certainly could, the state standard is to try and aim for 3 feet at low tide and to accommodate, but a lot of recreational boats are anywhere from 12 to 18 inches. Yeah.
Because of the tide and because of the muddiness of it there. And I think in mind, we're thinking that this is more canoe and kayak access instead of motorboat, obviously, because that's what we're talking about. I think it's a good idea partially, but I have a few problems with the access. And also the limitation on traffic and stuff going through, because that's close, those houses are close, it's a quite a populated neighborhood.
Ruth, this is not going in the neighborhood at all.
Oh, I thought it was
At
down
all.
by the sewer.
So it is,
It'll
but they're
cross.
proposing a gate here so that folks can't come through the neighborhood. They would have to come on the
Okay.
dark gray area through 4 side roads as is currently proposed.
Right.
It's flexible. Again, that's more of a policy.
That gate is designed, well, the gate exists already to the sewer district. That gate is there for emergency access only.
Okay.
If Chris has somebody out on the river and they need to get the boat in the water, that's the way they're gonna go. They're not gonna come down through the rec field and all the rest of it. But for the normal user, they'd have access down 4 side through the gated access at our spot and then take the turn and park.
That gate, you know,
It's right
is
there.
intended to come, yeah, right in that area.
With all that said, I mean, I am kind of in the same line as Dave here in terms of making sure that we are able to really have a substantial amount of motor access here as opposed to just canoe and kayak. Personal preference, but also, I mean, Bogham's spending ungodly amounts of money on their brand new, it's a dedicated kayak and canoe area where the old mill used to be and public works used to be. So it's huge. It's, I've seen plans for it. It's gonna be a major attraction, I think, for this type of activity. So making sure that we have a diversity of access capability, I think, would be in our best interest.
We'll take your comments, and certainly I also think the more we open it up, the more we need to have security discussions. So that's the other side we have to explore.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mark, you gonna take us away?
Any public comment? Nothing. Correspondence, this week I went back and forth with the library. We were supposed to meet on this coming Monday, just a general every so often meeting, which was set quite a while ago. I reached out, said we didn't have any burning issues, and they responded, no do they. But they would like to, and the whole goal of doing these is to talk, and there's not a lot going on. Timeframe, we're in the middle of budget season. They did ask, and I understand, I agreed to reschedule this prior to the end of the fiscal year. So that gives us 3 months. If you guys just want me to reach out and have a series of dates or do people, you know, I'm thinking more in June. 10th through the 20th or something like that, whatever, I don't, I'm not saying, but this. You know, what people want me to do that? Okay. All right, I'll do that. So no meeting Monday, now no meeting Tuesday. It's getting good. Anyone else have correspondence?
We did have that letter.
What's that?
Did have that. Oh, but that was from all the boards, though.
So far.
The one about, just prior to this school district meeting.
That was under the school board.
That was the school board, or was that all select boards?
Let me double check to make sure we're not missing anything. AS, the initials?
Yeah.
There are multiple towns, it looks like. Notice to stakeholders. Yeah, this was more not just to us, it looked like it went to all select boards. Yeah, basically, we got a, I'll just say, we got a letter talking about issues with the school and things going on, and it shouldn't have anything to do with us, and was not specifically addressed to us, so we do not need to handle it. But we got a letter. Does that make everyone? All right.
If you say so.
Any adjustments to the agenda? No. Consent calendar, approval of the minutes of the regular select board meeting, March 2nd, 2023. So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded, all those in favor? Unanimous. Next up, public hearing, consideration any appropriate action to review, discuss, and take possible action on the proposed increase in charges for road opening and driveway permits. So just for everyone here, if they're here for this, once we gavel open the public hearing, that is the opportunity for the public to speak. And the Public Works Director will probably give a quick overview prior to anything starting. And then once we gavel the public hearing closed, actually Dennis, I'll handle it. And once we gavel the public hearing closed, all discussion will only take place between the board. So I open the public hearing for consideration any appropriate action to review, discuss, and take possible action on the proposed increase in charges for road opening and driveway permits. Those changes are currently in the town of Topsham. It is $10 to gain an entrance permit, which is essentially your driveways and other things to enter the roadway. The proposal is to go from $10 to $50. And this is based on looking at surrounding communities, which range anywhere from $50 to $150. Road opening permits, which are probably just more contractors, anyone that needs to get into underground utilities and such, currently is $20. It is being proposed to take it to $100. Currently, surrounding communities range from $50 to $550. So we're looking to go from 10 to 20, 10 to 50 and 20 to 100. That is the overview. Anyone have any public comment? Nothing. I will close the public hearing. Board have any questions, comments, concerns? No. I'll make a motion that we approve the permit fees as proposed, taking the entrance permit fee to $50 and the road opening fee to $100.
Second.
Motion seconded, all those in favor. There we go, unanimous. Good job, Dennis. Unfinished business, 2298, consideration and appropriate action to grant an ATV access route from the current trail system to Rusty's utilizing Tedford Road. At the January meeting, I believe the board had asked for, not to refresh me, the board wanted additional information from the police department. And chief, whatever you have assembled.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Mark Hagan, Chief of Police. So we've run 14 traffic speed enforcement details out on the Tedford Road. We've issued 2 summonses, both for 41 and a 25, and we've issued 4 warnings. 2 of those were for speed, 2 were for other issues. That's pretty much the extent of the traffic. We can't put our trailer out there. We have a radar trailer that could monitor traffic and give us at least numbers on the road, but during the winter we can't have that out. So we've just had officers out there trying to run details, and we haven't had much. For the record, for what it's worth, the 2 summonses we did issue were to residents on that road.
Those that had interest in information, any questions of the chief? Appreciate the update.
Thank you.
So, were there any other things people wanted from that last meeting? Because the board wanted more information, stuff that needed more information. Is there any other information out there that we have not heard or anything? Okay. Whoever wants to go first. Come up, say your name clearly and your address, please.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Paul James. I've lived on the Tedford Road for 57 years. I've seen a lot of change over that road over a number of years. My concern here is with the access of having people riding snowmobiles up and down that road. Right now, it's a very narrow road. There are a lot of people that walk that road, especially during the summer. But in the winter, there are a lot of children that walk that road back and forth. Since I've retired, I've had a lot more time to watch the traffic on the road. And when there is snow on the road, there are snowmobiles that ride up and down that road. And I will say, in my opinion, a majority of them are using excessive speed going up and down that road. So my concern here is dealing with the safety issue. And I feel that it is the duty of this town to look at it from a safety point of view. And I hope that's what you do. I'd like to ask the police officer who was just here, you the chief, sir?
Yes, sir. Make sure, just kind of look at me and pretend you're talking to him, just so we follow the rules.
I'm willing to offer my driveway for a spot to put your gear in order to do what you need to do. I've spoken to the police department on numerous times about the fact of what's going on that road with speeders. So look at it from a safety point of view, if you would, please.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Hughes and I live at 27 Tedford Road. And I'm speaking out this evening against the ATV access down Tedford Road. I've lived there for 22 years. It's a very busy, narrow road and it is dangerous for pedestrians to walk on and bike on. I walk that road probably 5 out of 7 days a week. And it's dangerous. I don't wear any any music or anything, and I'm very cautious when walking, but there are people that speed by me and I'm dodging onto someone's lawn because it's just scary sometimes. And since I've moved onto the road, Topsham Crossing was added and the 75 houses Topsham Crossing has added. If you figure an average of 2 cars per house, that's a lot of cars that have been added to the Tedford Road to travel. And now we're adding Fairview Commons housing, which is low income housing that's being added for more traffic. And from my understanding, that's like 25 units, I think. So that's possibly an average of 2 more cars per unit that's going to be traveling. And I don't feel ATV access is necessary. The cars that travel our road, it's a necessity between the people that live on the road and the businesses, the construction vehicles that use our road to access the highlands and also any construction and things that people have done that live in our neighborhood. And there's plenty of Topsham area businesses for the people to get gas and food for their day of being on their ATVs. They can pack coolers, they can fill their vehicles, they can buy a spare gas tank, so they've got extra gas. So I don't feel that it's a necessity to have access down Tedford Road for gas and food at Rusty's. So I'm asking you to please vote no on the ATV access on the Tedford Road. Thank you.
Anything else? The board will take this up.
Hi, guys. Good evening. Jenny Little, once again, president of Topsham Trail Riders, for those watching from home and for those folks. But I had the opportunity of introducing myself. We've met on a couple of occasions. I think we started this process in November with the official introduction of the road access. And we've participated in a public hearing, and we ourselves took it upon to gather some data just so we had some perspective. And I think I can validate that I have reported to our club members the concerns the residents have shared with us from the speeding, from the sound, from the necessity of this. I have shared with them, and we are prepared to go to the table to have a discussion with the town and the neighborhood to perhaps come to a probationary period, perhaps. We do have, for those folks who may not know, our trail system currently is an east side and a west side, and we are not connected. Working on that, but not currently connected. So we have a park and ride located on the west side, and we have an accessibility on the east side. So although it would be lucrative and economically a benefit to have to leave a machine rather than leaving in the middle of the road, it's easier to leave it in a public location for them to pick up. So I would encourage as a community, we have been involved with over 20 years, just to keep an open mind and perhaps consider allowing us a probationary period. We are willing to go to the table to have this discussion and revisit this next year if that is the path that you so choose. Thank you.
Yeah, just before we just start discussing. Board have anything they want to say? I do, but I'll let anyone go first.
I would like to just say, I have a lot of sympathy for the trail riders. I think it's good and a positive thing, and I think people really enjoy it. But I also have tremendous sympathy for the neighborhood, because any disruption to a neighborhood, I just always have fallen the side of the neighborhood. I don't disagree with your proposal of probation period. I think that would be a good test, and to sit down with the neighbors and the neighborhood and see if there's a resolution to this. That's all I have to say.
So I came into this thinking probation, was a kind of provisional, but the idea of also having some type of preliminary discussion to sort of form that agreement up, I think. And there has to be a face-to-face discussion between the trail riders and the residents, and there needs to be some type of consensus. Otherwise, this is not a win-win for anybody. So, that's really my position is, any type of provisional approval would be subject to some type of consensus being reached prior to it commencing.
They talk about the speeding. But it seems to me that if there was an ATV coming down, that would slow traffic down. So I would think it would help in that situation.
So I've got. You do nothing.
Excusing.
Sorry, man.
No worries.
I am not in favor of this. There's been nothing presented through any of the meetings that provides an actual gives a benefit. It's a convenience. And to provide the benefit, and I do not believe the economic benefit of a couple vehicles going down to Rusty's is anything but a transfer of where that money is spent. It's either going to be spent prior to getting on the trails or after getting on the trails. In order to provide a benefit, I think we'd have to overcome the enforcement of the issues that will take place. There is no doubt in my mind, Topsham Trail Riders would and have done everything in their power to make sure their members are going to follow the rules and do this right. But just like the rest of us in society, we're all held to those that don't, right? Enforcement is an issue. If a neighbor picks up the phone and says, this issue just happened, someone went by speeding, police department's gonna come. If they don't witness it, there's not gonna be a speeding ticket issued. Someone may get spoken to. Will it change? Won't it change? It's no different than what we go through in speeding cars in our neighborhoods now, which is an ongoing issue. There's only so much that the officer is going to be able to do if they come in after the fact. Multiple times in the past several months, we've had Chief Hagan publicly and in presentations to us about motor vehicle crashes in the town of Topsham. It's been at a very high rate. And now we're looking to add vehicles that are uninspected, that will go up and down the road, that are not as large as other vehicles, not set up as other vehicles, and provides more of an opportunity to have more issues. If I want to get up and I want to go to Rusty's and I get in my truck, I'm getting in a state of Maine inspected vehicle that provides blinkers. It has more lighting. And these aren't, every single person that buys a four-wheeler knows that their ATV is not for the roads without special exception. So we're not taking anything from anybody who's asking for it. And the noise. We're already aware, Ruth has brought it to this board. The town manager receives phone calls, the police department receives phone calls of the area of Bay Park with ATV issues. And there's not a lot that can get done because, as I said before, it's about the enforcement. It's finding the crime as it happens and seeing it. But we know this is an issue. We know that there's speed. We know that the noise is very high. So that's where I am. That's how I've come to my no vote. Though if the board is to move forward, and I'm in the minority, just like everyone said, I would ask for the following provisions. Still gonna vote no against it, but I would ask that these provisions be put in. That the time is only between sunrise and sunset, that there'd be nothing after that because of visibility. No more than a 6-month trial. There needs to be an extremely high level of fines issued by this town if anyone breaks any of these, the sunrise, sunset. And I don't believe it should be happening during the snow season. If vehicles are having a harder time stopping and these vehicles aren't as visible as a roadworthy vehicle, I don't think we should be adding it to it. So I'd still vote against it. But if you're gonna look for provisions, that's what I would ask that you do. Does anyone have a motion?
I would. To grant the ATV access route from the current trail system to Rusty's, utilizing Tedford Road during non-snow times.
I mean, if you're gonna go with what I said, I was at November 1, April 1,
All right.
nothing between that time.
The 6-month trial.
Sunrise, sunset,
And sunrise, sunset.
high level of fines. They're fine ideas. Well, we gotta promote, we've gotta give them a number that they need to be able to say if they break any of those things. I'm still gonna vote against it, but we need to do these.
I think we'd have to pass ordinance for that by the time
Yeah, I think.
the vote's one.
So is there a second to that motion? So you probably don't want the fines because we can't do it, or
Right.
propose to put it to town meeting, but. Is there a second? There is no second. I don't think we need to do anything else. I mean, we don't need to vote against it. Do people want to vote against it, or we can just let it die? Let it die. That's that. Thank you. 23/27. Consideration any appropriate action to accept the agreement between Six Rivers Nemba Group and the town of Topsham. Who's gonna handle that?
In 2018, we approved an agreement with Six Rivers Mountain Biking Club to develop and create what we have currently out at the solid waste facility. What you have before us is a proposal. Ernie Phillips, a resident and member of the board of Six Rivers, is here to speak.
Yeah, so the original agreement, there was a memorandum of understanding from the original trails that were built. Last year, no, 2 years ago, we came before the board, got approval to build pump track. Pump track is now built. The MOU before you adds the agreement to cover the pump track in for us to maintain it, town to maintain ownership. Also gives for us to be able to place a shed out there for tools and other stuff like that. So we worked with Mark Waltz on the wording on this.
Good idea.
Yeah, with that being said, the shed that they have would be their property. The shed would have to be removable at any time, if deemed necessary for it to be removed. Those two things we worked out.
And we provided insurance with the town that covers our activities out there as well as the shed and.
Anyone have questions? So I'll make a motion that we accept the agreement between Six Rivers NEMBA and Town of Topsham as presented. Yeah. Motion seconded. All those in favor? 4 against. Vote. And anyone opposed?
Who voted, who against? You was against?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Well, then I need to do that. It's important. So we needed to, in that motion, needed to authorize the town manager to sign the agreement. So without a issue from Roland, because he gave me my second. I'm just trying to think what's it. So I will make the motion to be accept the agreement between Six Rivers NEMBA Group and the Town of Topsham and allow the town manager to sign such agreement. Do I have a second? Motion seconded. All those in favor? 4. All those against? 2328, consideration any appropriate action on the Boston Post Kane nominee. Linda?
Good evening, Linda Dumont, town clerk. Back in November, I was notified that the current Boston Post Game recipient had passed away at the age of 103. So I posted open nominations for new people, and we have in your packet, there's a couple of applications. But in our policy, the board needs to select the eldest person. So I'm here to ask you to make that selection, and then I will move forward with planning the presentation and the date of that event.
So that, can we say the name or
Yeah.
is it just for us?
No.
So,
One person, she said 2, I just.
yeah, well, it's really only one because we have to approve the oldest. They're the second place
Just 2
person.
applications.
There
But
were 2 applications, but Jeanette Labby is the eldest applicant. And I would make a motion that we present the Boston Post Cane to Jeanette Labby.
Second.
Motion seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous. 2329, consideration any appropriate action on a proclamation to be sent to Maine Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration regarding Frank J. Wood Bridge.
Okay. Hi, good evening. Recently, we know the history of the Frank Wood Bridge. We've been dealing with this at least 2014. During that time period, we, both Brunswick and Topsham, had members to participate in the design advisory committee. The process went forward with a lot of public input, both to Topsham Select Board as well as the Brunswick Council. Following that period, the Friends of Frank J. Wood Bridge were involved and opposed MDOT's movement towards the replacement of the bridge for several different reasons. During that time, this project got delayed. Topsham actually funded their portion of the bridge back 3 years ago. for the total of Topsum's assessment from MDOT. Following that year, when we thought construction was going to happen, it was upheld in decision for the first district court, and since then we've been delayed about 2 years. Within the last year and a half, MDOT imposed a weight restriction on the bridge, which actually put a few things at risk. 2 things I'd like to point out is the local economy, and more importantly, for the town of Topsham and Brunswick, it's the public safety risk that we have incurred. Thankfully, we haven't had any major issues with any mutual aid type of events, but right now, our only vehicles that can cross that bridge are our ambulances. If there were a structure fire, it would be very difficult to get back and forth. About 3 weeks ago, we were informed that the Friends of Frank J. Wood Bridge initiated another lawsuit, which became the focus of our attention over the last several weeks. I've had contact with Town Manager Eldridge for the town of Brunswick, as well as MDOT, to find out what this would mean for both towns and the possible replacement. Knowing that the risk to public safety was paramount for us to address, as well as the potential impact and future impact of our local businesses, not only in the lower village, but over in the Topsham Fair Mall area. In the event that the Frank Wood Bridge either closes or more restrictions are placed on it, over here in Topsham as opposed to Brunswick, our additional concern is the traffic on Route 196. We have traffic issues right now in the morning and the afternoon. The closure of that bridge would lead to greater impacts, putting public safety further at risk as well as our local economy. Brunswick Town Council had a council meeting in which they provided a resolution to continue with the replacement as soon as possible. I actually had input to that as well, getting more information from MDOT. We both have the same issues. The importance of public safety and the mutual aid is paramount for us, as well as economies on both sides. Currently, if the replacement continues, and it's been getting worse as far as the condition of the bridge, but if that bridge closes, we are going to be impacted. The impact is going to be a lot more negative in the near term. If this bridge continues on its course to replacement, we can still use the current bridge for a period of time. So, but as time goes on and we delay this further, that may not be an option. And there's a possible bridge closure that will impact us for a greater period of time. So with that said, we've drafted a resolution very similar to Brunswick's, with exceptions on how it affects Topsham. The one thing I'd like to say is what's before you, what I actually handed out, differs slightly than what was on the website and what was presented in the last paragraph.
And so a couple days ago, I called the town manager when reading this, and I spoke with him and I asked him to draw something up slightly different than what was presented publicly, because I wanted to present that tonight. So I wanted everyone to have something in front of them, what it would look like. The second page, the very last item, it spoke about asking the group to stop their legal process and forego anything else. I'm at issue with that. I don't know, it's the town's right to tell somebody whether they can or can't bring suit against something. Me personally, I would say that as an individual, it's like, just stop, let's move on. But I don't know, that's the town of Topsham's right, or even their place to do so against any citizen. So I asked Derek to put something together so we could look at tonight, because I was going to make a motion to change it. So the paper that we all were given tonight, the new paragraph says, be it further resolved that the town's select board of the town of Topsham supports no further delay to the construction of the new bridge, which is necessary to prevent additional risk the local economy, public safety, welfare and convenience. So I asked, because I would make a motion tonight that we remove that wording, asking them to stand down or however it was put, but. So that's the difference where Derek was gonna bring up what the difference, why we have that here. Questions, comments?
The only comment I have is, if you adopt this resolution, be forwarded to MDOT as well as the Federal Highway Administration in support of the replacement.
One of the important things I think in here, it continued from the town of Topsham is that we believe that the MDOT should continue forward with their bidding process and, continuing to move forward, not stopping unless told we had to. I think that's very important because, every single day that bridge is worsening. Earlier tonight, that thing's dropping stuff into that river repeatedly, whether it be rusted parts. I guarantee there's probably some form of lead paint left on that thing and it's dropping in the river. Because I can't imagine we ever stripped it all the way down. It's time that we just move forward with this process, so.
Derek, since the cost is essentially quadrupled, at this point from DOT original estimate, is that going to jack up our portion and all?
No, one of the agreements that we had, when we started getting delayed, that, the town of Topson's assessment would hold what we had budgeted that year. So the cost of Topsom is the same, however, the money comes from somewhere and the state's paying for it, so it's still taxpayer.
I just want to say, I think we need to move on and we need to get this new bridge done. I like historic sites and archaeology and antique stuff as well as the next person, but safety is such a big concern. And I can't understand why people that believe in environment and, want electric cars and all the stuff, don't see what's happening to that bridge that is going into the river. And the more we use 196, the more energy, negative energy, like gas and stuff, we're putting into the environment instead of being able to go across that bridge. So that part of it doesn't make sense to me, so I am absolutely for presenting this and signing it and moving forward.
Thanks for putting this together. I think this is well written, and I think the thing I want to emphasize here is we cannot afford to have that existing bridge closed one single day.
Right.
No matter what the reason, so. It's been true.
Aaron? Is it? Okay.
I'm a fan of moving this forward. Just gonna say that before I say the next thing, but I mean, DOT is quite liberal with the mentioning of how they've gone through an extensive public process, design advisory committee. And I can't say, as in all of my years in the state, and even now working on the lower road advisory committee, that DOT has ever entered a public process objectively without a preferred option in mind. So clearly, from the get-go, cement was their preference. And honestly, it's my preference as well. But I just need to be clear, especially when we're talking about how they went through a public process. DOT doesn't go through public design processes. They take input and they go with what they want to do. That's what DOT does. Whether it's a bridge, whether it's a railroad, whether it's the highway up at Hamden that they jammed through. I just want to be on record as saying that. I don't agree with, worked extensively with the design advisory committee, but everything else I'm fine with. Works for me.
I don't have any answer to your history or anything, but I do know, at least from working with the design advisory committee, I do know from feedback there was, and it wasn't the design of cement versus not, it was a lot for the type of lighting, the lookouts and stuff. So I don't know any of the history, but
The only comment I would like to clarify is I was part of some of the design advisories committee in Brooklyn, and There were, MDOT engineers at each of those meetings.
Something you'll never hear again, because I am not a fan of resolution, I will make. Oh, yeah. So I will make a motion to adopt the newest, the version that was provided tonight to us with the wording change in the last paragraph. In support of the Maine Department of Transportation plan to replace the Frank J. Wood Bridge presented March 16th, 2023. Second. Motion seconded. All those in favor? Don't go anywhere. We have to sign this, or what we just did is no good.
The correct version.
You may have that. Sorry, Patty. Next up, executive session 2330 to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4056C to discuss acquisition of real property. No.
Okay.
I think we did that last time. So it's still a motion to enter into executive session.
Second.
Motion seconded, all those in favor. There we go.